Hi everyone. Have you ever wondered how the tongue helps us to speak, taste, or even swallow? In the next few minutes, we will explore the fascinating anatomy of the tongue and how it's essential for our daily functions. So let us see the learning objectives of our topic today. By the end of this class, you will be able to identify the key parts of the tongue, understand their functions, and explain how they work together for speaking, tasting, and swallowing. Before we dive into the details, can anyone tell the functions of the tongue and name a part of the tongue? Okay, so now let us see. The tongue is a muscular organ situated in the floor of the mouth. It is associated with the functions of taste, speech, chewing, deglutition, and cleansing of mouth. The tongue has different parts: a root, a tip, body, which further has a curved upper surface known as the dorsum and an inferior surface. So this diagram helps to understand the different parts of the tongue. So this is a tip of the tongue, and this is the dorsum of the tongue. So this is what you can see when you open the mouth. Now, the dorsum of the tongue is further divided into anterior two-third and posterior one-third by means of an inverted V-shaped sulcus known as sulcus terminalis. So the anterior two-third is called oral part because it lies in the oral cavity proper, in other words, in the mouth. So that's why it's oral part. And the posterior one-third, it is in the oropharynx. That's why it is called the pharyngeal part. So these two parts, so they are entirely different from each other as far as their development and their structure and the nerve supply, as well as the appearance. So now on the dorsum of the tongue, it shows a projections, a small mucosal projection with connective tissue deeper to that. So these projections are named as papillae. They're called papillae. There are four types of papillae seen on the anterior two-third of the tongue only. So the first one is known as circumvallate papillae. They are present in a row just along the anterior aspect of the sulcus terminalis. They're about 8 to 12 in number. And you can see the fungiform papillae along the margins and tip of the tongue. And in the dorsum, in the entire area, you can see the filiform papillae. A few papillae seen on the margin, so that is called foliate papillae. So these papillae are present only in the anterior two-third of the tongue. Whereas posterior one-third also shows some projections. So these are due to the lymphoid follicles. The lymphoid follicles. So these lymphoid follicles collectively known as the lingual tonsils. Now this is the structure of the papillae. So as you see under microscope, so this is the circumvallate papillae, where you can see the number of taste buds along its wall. So these taste buds are more in circumvallate papillae. So you can see the taste buds in the fungiform papillae also. Now, as I said, the tongue is a muscular organ. So it is entirely made up of the muscles, skeletal muscles, and it's surrounded by mucous membrane. There are two types of muscles. One is intrinsic muscles, another is extrinsic muscles. Intrinsic muscles means they are confined to the tongue, and there are four in number, each side of the tongue, according to their direction of the fibers. So they are superior longitudinal, inferior longitudinal, transverse, and vertical intrinsic muscle, whereas the extrinsic muscles four in number. So they are named as genioglossus, hyoglossus, styloglossus, and palatoglossus. So very interestingly, so these intrinsic muscles, when they act, they change the shape of the tongue by shortening or elongating or by flattening. Whereas the extrinsic muscles, when they act, they change the position of the tongue. For example, the genioglossus protrude the tongue, hyoglossus depresses the tongue, styloglossus retracts the tongue, whereas palatoglossus elevates the tongue. Now, these are the cross-section of the tongue again to show the various muscles, both intrinsic and extrinsic muscles. Okay. So this diagram shows the blood supply of the tongue. So the tongue is supplied by the lingual artery. The lingual artery is a branch of external carotid artery. So as it passes deep to the hyoglossus muscle, then give branches, then it becomes wavy, and then it's called deep inguinal artery. So this wavy nature helps the free movement of the tongue. Accompanying the artery, there is a veins, they're called venae committantes, and this lingual vein finally opens into internal jugular vein. So now this diagram helps the lymphatic drainage of the tongue. So the different part of the tongue opens in a different lymph nodes. So from the tip, submandibular group of lymph nodes, submandibular group of lymph node receives from the dorsum of the tongue, except the tip, then posterior one-third to the deep cervical lymph node. So this dark color shows that the lymph drains on bilaterally. So finally, all these lymph drains into the jugulo-omohyoid group of lymph node is among the deep cervical lymph node. So that's why the jugulo-omohyoid is considered as the lymph node of the tongue. Now coming to the nerve supply of the tongue. So being a muscle, so it is supplied by motor nerves. All the muscles supplied by hypoglossal nerve, except palatoglossus, which is supplied by vago-accessory complex. Whereas the sensory part, so the anterior two-third is by lingual nerve, general sensory, chordotympanoid nerve, special sensory, except circumvallate papillae, which is supplied along with the posterior one-third by the glossopharyngeal nerve, both general and special sensory. Whereas posterior most supplied by the internal laryngeal nerve branch of the vagus. Let's see if you remember. Can anyone point to where the taste buds are located on the tongue? Okay, now it should be on the papillae. So in summary, to wrap up, the tongue is a versatile organ that helps us to speak, taste, and swallow. So it has different parts like tip, body, root, each with its own role, and is made up of specialized muscles and taste buds. So if you have any doubt, please contact me. And the reference I have taken for my presentation is by the two textbooks. One is by the Keithel Moore and another is by the B.D. Chaurasia. Thank you, one and all.